The rates at which human beings lose muscle mass with age are absolutely terrifying, but luckily there are ways to reverse it. Hi everybody, my name is Will Harlow and I'm the Over-Fifties Specialist Physio here at HT Physio in Farnham, and today I'm going to be revealing the 7 ways that you can reverse natural muscle loss that occurs with age. Now, before we dive into the content of the video, if you haven't already, please hit like on the video and subscribe to the channel, because then you'll be the first to hear about our new videos when they come out. And if you're finding videos like these useful, then please consider sharing them with a friend or a family member who might benefit, because organic growth is the only way we grow this channel. So thank you very much if you share it. Now that that's all been said, let's talk about muscle loss with age. And the figures are absolutely terrifying. So the truth is, and this has been proven in studies over time, that on average, per decade of life after the age of 30, humans tend to lose between 3 and 8% of their total muscle mass. Now that is enormous. Imagine if you lost 8% of your muscle mass from the ages of 30 to 40, then another 8% from 40 to 50, then another 8% from 50 to 60. It wouldn't be long until you had almost nothing left. And the problem with this is that that rate accelerates even faster after the age of 60. And most of the people I treat are 50 plus. And the research shows that on average, every single year, most people over the age of 60 lose about 1% of their total muscle mass. So it doesn't take long before that really starts to compound and their muscle mass becomes significantly less than they need it to be. So why is all of this a problem? Well, having low muscle mass has been shown to increase the risk of falls, increase the risk of fractures, decrease quality of life, cause higher morbidity from other health problems, and even be a leading predictor of early death. So losing muscle mass is a very bad thing. It's something we should try to reverse if we can, and thankfully there are some excellent ways to reverse it. Now, it was once believed that we're just going to all lose muscle mass as we get older. There's nothing you can do to avoid it, but this is actually incorrect. And there are many things you can put into place starting today that will maintain and even reverse your muscle mass loss so that you'll maintain muscle mass and be stronger, fitter, and healthier as a result. It's worth also saying that people with lower muscle mass tend to suffer from more painful problems. So a lot of these strategies I put into place with my patients. If they've got knee pain, back pain, hip pain, whatever the problem may be, we're always talking about these methods in clinic because they tend to help lots and lots of painful problems as well as just maintaining muscle mass. So let's have a look at the 7 things you can do to reverse muscle loss with age. So the first and best way to reverse muscle loss with age is to engage in resistance training. Now, resistance training just means moving against resistance. The resistance could be a weight like a dumbbell. The resistance could be your body weight, like if you were doing a press up or a sit to stand from the chair. But you have to be doing something that is hard work for your muscles and pushes against some kind of external force. This doesn't mean you need to rush out and join a gym, although that would be a good option. There are lots and lots of things you can do at home. I have other videos on my channel which show the best body weight exercises to build up your legs and your arms as well. You can find that if you browse my channel. But basically, it's just about doing something regularly. It doesn't need to be a full hour every day. Sometimes I will give people just 10 minutes a day of work to do, and that is enough to combat the effects of aging. Some of my favorite exercises are the squat and the sit to stand. The press up is brilliant. You can use the bench press or the dumbbell press in the gym to keep your upper body as well. Overhead presses are excellent. Picking things up from the floor like a deadlift is also really good. And then you can have single leg movements too, like lunges, which work one side of the body more than the other and improve your balance at the same time. There are hundreds of different things you can do, but the key is to find something that you enjoy, something that doesn't hurt, something that makes you feel tired when you finish doing a set, and to do it consistently. So those are the main things to do when it comes to resistance training. If you're not sure, I would recommend getting some personalized advice from a physiotherapist who can put a program together for you to help you maintain that muscle mass. Now, the key here when you're doing resistance training is that the exercises should make you feel tired by the end of the set. We tend to work in repetition ranges somewhere between 5 in a row up to 20 in a row. When you start to do more than 20, you're working more your endurance. And if you're doing less than 5, then if you're doing it unsupervised, there is a slightly higher risk of injury. So between 5 and 20 in a row works well. And by the end of that set, so when you hit your 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 repetitions in a row, it should feel tired as if you would struggle to do many more. We usually recommend a few sets of each of those exercises and to do at least something resistance-based every single day. That is a recipe for success in maintaining muscle mass. Now, the second way to reverse muscle loss with age is to choose compound exercises. So this is building on the point of resistance training. And what I'm going to do now is explain one exercise which is okay but not that great, and then an excellent exercise which takes exactly the same time as each other, but one will give you a lot more bang for your buck. So the first exercise I'm going to describe, and this is one that we don't necessarily recommend for maintaining muscle mass, is an isolation exercise called the bicep curl. And no doubt you will have seen people in the gym doing these. They typically hold a dumbbell and they bend their arm up and then let it down like this, and it works this muscle here. Now, there's nothing wrong with this exercise, but the problem with this exercise is exactly that. It only works this one muscle. So when you do this exercise, you're isolating the bicep, and it's working just this one bicep here and then a couple of other little muscles around the elbow. But other than that, you're not really getting much bang for your buck. It takes just as much time as doing any other exercise, but you're not getting a huge amount out of it. So we avoid isolation exercises for most people, and instead of that, we guide people to take compound exercises instead. So an example of the compound exercise would be the squat. And a squat would be either with your body weight when you're just coming up like this and then squatting down. You can do it from a chair, or if you're feeling like you're a bit stronger, you can put a weight on your back and you can squat down like that if you're in a gym. And the great thing about the squat is it doesn't just work one muscle group, it works 3 or 4 muscle groups. It works the muscles in your hips that help you drive up and forward. It works the other muscles in your hips that keep your pelvis level. It works your thigh muscles, so your quads, and it even works some of the muscles in the hamstring and even down into the calf and the foot as well. So we call this a compound exercise because it involves 2 or 3 different joints all at the same time and all the muscles included too. So if you just choose the squat, you can have a great workout in just 10 minutes by doing 4 or 5 sets of squats. And if you were just doing 4 or 5 sets of bicep curl, yeah, you would maintain your muscle mass here, but nothing would happen at the rest of the body. Whereas with the squat, you're hitting the whole lower half of your body in the same time. So if you're choosing exercises to maintain muscle mass, always choose a compound exercise rather than an isolation exercise. Another example of a great compound exercise would be a press up. So a press up on the wall or on the floor, which uses your shoulders, your chest and your arms. So most of your upper body and the core as well. The overhead press is another one, and the deadlift, picking things up from the floor. So those are great options to choose, and not avoid the isolation exercises. You just don't get quite as much out of them, and choose a compound exercise instead. The third way to reverse muscle loss with age is to do lots of weight-bearing exercise. Now, weight-bearing exercise doesn't need to fall into the same category as your resistance exercise. It could just include walking, it could include hiking, it could include running, things like that. All involve weight bearing and being on your feet and bearing weight through your limbs. So why is that important, and why is that better for maintaining your muscle mass than things like cycling? Well, the reason it's a bit better than things like cycling for maintaining muscle mass is because you're using more of your muscles, because you're using your upper body as well, and you're also taking your entire body weight through the muscles of the lower limb every time you take a step. The other good thing about it is that it also maintains your bone mass as well. So when we're walking, it sends a signal to the bones that we need as much density in those bones as possible to bear our weight. And we don't get that same signal from things like cycling. I'm not saying cycling is bad, but walking is definitely better in later life for maintaining and building muscle mass. So I would recommend everyone tries to get at least 5 to 10,000 steps a day if they can. It's a great way to send a signal to your body to maintain as much muscle mass as possible. Now, the fourth way to reverse muscle loss with age is to get enough protein. Now, protein is a macronutrient that is included in our diets. We have three major macronutrients. You've got fat, carbohydrate, and protein. And we can think of fat and carbohydrate simply as the energy sources. And protein, instead of providing energy, what it does is provide building blocks for your muscles. So one of the main reasons that people lose too much muscle mass as they get older is because they're not eating enough protein. And if you don't eat enough protein in your diet, your body still needs the protein. So what it will do is it will break down your muscle mass in order to get it. So protein is absolutely vital. If we don't have enough protein, the body says, well, we can't afford to keep these expensive muscle tissues anymore, so we'll start stripping away the protein from the muscles. So the muscles get smaller and weaker, and we get weaker as a result. Now, the guidelines from the government usually recommend that most people eat about 1 gram per kilogram of body weight per day of protein. But unfortunately, this doesn't seem to be the optimal range in many of the studies that I've been reading about. It looks like this may well be an under-prescription for most people who want to maintain muscle mass. I would recommend people look more towards the range of 1.5 to 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day, because that seems to be the more accepted range for building and maintaining muscle. Now, of course, that isn't going to work for everyone because some people have things like kidney issues, which mean they can't safely eat as much protein. So always check with your doctor before making any radical changes to your diet. But having availability of protein in the body is absolutely critical to maintain your muscle mass. If you do all the resistance training in the world, but you don't eat enough protein, quite simply, you still won't maintain or build muscle mass. It will still decrease because your body simply doesn't have the building blocks. So having enough protein is vital, and you can find protein in things like meat, chicken, fish, eggs, nuts, and lots of different sources. So however you put your diet together, make sure you're prioritizing protein. It's best to take in your protein spread across the day, so spread over a few meals rather than a big proteinous meal all in one go. Typically 3 or 4 servings a day and a total of 1.5 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight tends to work best for building and maintaining. Now, the fifth way to reverse muscle loss with age is to take up hobbies in retirement. Now, this is more of a lifestyle tip because it's something I've spotted a lot in the clinic. I treat a lot of people who are just coming into retirement, so they're just finishing work and moving into that next phase of life. And a lot of them have spent a lot of time throughout their life working, they're very dedicated to their jobs, and then they suddenly come to a stop and life is completely different. And they don't know what to do with their spare time, they don't know how to fill it. Maybe they are more socially active, but over time they find that they're not moving around as much because their work was something that kept them going, it kept them out of the house, it got them moving, it got them challenging their brain and their body, and now they've lost out on that. So it's very, very important that you take up something in retirement that's going to replace your lost efforts in work. If you had a desk-based job, this is not as important, but many of my clients have physical jobs. And if you imagine that you've lost out on all of that physical exercise when you stop work, it's not going to do you any favors just sitting on the couch. So you need to get something into your life to replace that lost exercise. And this tip really applies for anyone who stops playing a sport or stops a hobby. We need to have something that takes its place if we want to maintain muscle mass. So have a look at your life, have a think about what you enjoy doing. Pick something that you can do consistently that doesn't feel like a chore, that's going to get you active, it's going to get you up on your feet and get you moving. And that's an excellent way to clock extra steps, to clock extra resistance work, and to maintain muscle mass. Now, the sixth way to reverse muscle loss with age is to choose the stairs. This is such a simple tip. This is something that many people always choose the opposite of. They take the escalator or they take the lift if there's an option there. But if you make this one simple change when you're out and about and always use the stairs, you're going to maintain a lot more muscle mass in your legs. Now, when we have clients who go from a house to a bungalow, there is a phenomenon we call bungalow legs. We see it a lot. And that's in the first year that those people make that change, they tend to get a lot weaker in their legs and they're at a higher risk of falls and other injuries as a result, just because they lost those 10 or 11 trips up and down the stairs every day. So make sure if you have the choice to either take the stairs or the lift, you always opt for the stairs. It might feel like it's more effort at the time, and it is, but that's also the point, because it's going to send a signal to your legs that you still need those muscles, and it will maintain them as a result. And then the seventh tip I've got for you for reversing muscle loss with age is to get painful problems sorted fast. Now, the reason we say this is because painful problems often start as a niggle, and people often think, well, it's a bit niggly today, my knee, so what I'm going to do is I'm not going to do my normal walk. So they take a few days off, and then the niggle doesn't get better, it gets a bit worse. So they think, well, I'm going to rest a bit further. And then this becomes a vicious circle because the rest makes the muscles weaker, which means that there's more pressure on the knee, which means that the knee becomes more painful, which means that the person takes more rest. Now, you can replace the word knee with ankle, hip, back, neck, whatever it may be. I see this pattern all the time. And it's people who, they try and tolerate a problem for a while, and then when the niggle becomes a little bit more than a niggle, they stop doing their normal exercise, and then that goes on for protracted periods of time. And then often I'll see people in the clinic who suffered for 1 year, 2 years, 5 years before they've got any advice on their problem. It's just been getting worse and worse. And they've in the meantime, they've missed out on tons of exercise as a result, and their muscle loss rate has increased dramatically as a result. So to combat that, I would say if you've had a painful problem that's been there for longer than a couple of weeks, it's always best to get some advice on it. Even if the pain goes away on its own, quite often the underlying problem that caused it in the first place is still there, so it's likely to come back. So for that reason, it's always best to get advice, even if it's just one session, to get something checked out, to get it looked at, and then to stop it from happening again in the future. If you can avoid injuries, if you can avoid niggles, then you're going to be moving a lot more, which is going to maintain your muscle mass. The people who keep the most muscle mass on their bodies are quite simply the ones who avoid the most injuries quite often. Because if you're injured, you can't do as much resistance training, you can't do as much walking, and you will lose muscle quicker as a result. So don't let it get so bad that you can't exercise at all. Put something into place as quickly as you can to get the problem sorted, and you'll maintain more muscle mass as a result. So those are all of the tips for how to reverse muscle loss with age. I hope you found this useful. If you have, please leave me a comment below. And if you want to get more from me, you can pick up a copy of my book on Amazon. It's called Thriving Beyond 50. And it will give you loads more tips, tricks, and strategies for remaining healthy in your 50s and beyond. Anyway, that's all I've got for you today. I appreciate your time in watching this video, and I look forward to speaking to you on the next one.